started going in his younger years. Always wished it would be his life.
Okay, so today is epoxy day. We are going to bond the panels to the fiberglass, the bottom skin. So as you can see, I've got all my panels cut, all the relief cuts in them so that they flex, and everything fits pretty good. And where there's seams, I'll just fill in with epoxy. So yeah, we're moving along here. Just wanted to point out, other than the shop vac, these are the only tools I've used. Just a screwdriver, hammer, pry bar, a drill, a 4-inch grinder, and the oscillating tool. I can't tell you enough how awesome the oscillating tool's been. It's been absolutely amazing. Oh, and I have a little orbital sander here as well. So those are the only tools you need. And yeah, so let's get into the bonding here. I don't know if I've mentioned it in this video yet, and anyone that's been following our videos certainly knows that I'm in no way a professional of anything boating related. This is purely a learn as we go, figuring it out, learning from our mistakes kind of thing. So just want to put that out there. This is not a how-to video as much as it is just trying to show you guys the problems we have and how we try and overcome them ourselves. So take that for what it's worth. And what we're going to do now is basically, before I can get bonding this, I've got to clean up the skin and the plywood, and I'm going to use some acetone to just get rid of any dust, dirt, any grease, that sort of thing. And then we'll get to work with the West Systems, and I'll show you that stuff here in a minute. Okay, so here's my setup here. West Systems is apparently one of the easiest systems to use, and it's one of the best systems. So it basically comprises of the 105 resin, the 205 fast hardener I'm using. There's different hardeners. This one you can use down to 4 degrees Celsius. And when I started this morning, it was 4 degrees. It's warmed up a little bit now. I guess that's what you get for doing it in October. And then we have the fillers here, the 404 and the 403 fillers, just to thicken it up for different applications. So the pumps are important to get the pumps. And it's basically 1 pump of 105 to 1 pump of 205. And then you just put as much hardener in as you feel you need to thicken it up. And yeah, so that's what I've got. And let's get going here. The first thing I'm going to do is mix up a batch with the 403 hardener in it. And that's the thickener I'm told to use on the relief cuts. Because what's going to happen is once I set the plywood in, those relief cuts filled with the epoxy will give it the flexibility to bond to the shape. And as it cures, it'll fill in those relief cuts so that it's a nice, rigid, solid piece once again. So the resin with the 403 onto the relief cuts is what I'm doing first. Once I'm done that, I'm going to use a batch of just 105 and 205 to coat the back of the plywood, just to wet it up. And then I'm going to do a batch of the 105, 205 with the 403 to thicken it up, to kind of create a bed on the bottom sheet of fiberglass, to which the board will, or the plywood will adhere to. So here goes nothing. And this is my first time working with epoxy, so I'm a little bit nervous here. It can heat up on you, so you want to be aware of that. The bigger the batch, the quicker it can heat up, apparently. So I'm making some small batches here. Okay. And you want it sort of thin enough that it can get seep down into the cuts.
Whiskey, oh whiskey, please help me forget her. Wash away all my memories since the day that I've met her. The least you can do is to help me move on. Oh whiskey, it's your fault she's gone. It's been 6 long weeks since my love and I parted. Got up and walked out, leaving me so downhearted. The names that she called me cut me straight to the bone. And then she left me here drinking alone. She didn't approve of my drinking and gambling. She told me to choose between her love and rambling. It was a hard choice, and I miss her, it's true. Now whiskey, it's just me and you.
Okay, so there's the progress so far. I've got the first 2 pieces installed. And I apologize I didn't show you guys. All hell broke loose. This is a time-sensitive thing. So I had batches mixed up. And the pump on the can broke. So that left me rushing around trying to find a measuring cup or something and trying to figure out the ratios, which are simple enough. They're just 5 resin to 1 hardener. So that screwed me up. And then if you can see down there on the end, the little wooden piece that's attaching the two, I had these shims made up, and I was going to fasten them all along the edge of the panels and screw them into the fiberglass, and they were going to apply pressure to the edges to keep everything tight. And I was finding A, my drill died, and B, they weren't screwing into the fiberglass, and it wasn't holding enough pressure. So that left me scrambling to find something to hold the panels down with, which is these weight plates, and they're doing a great job. So yeah, it was panic. And again, first time doing this, and you're told there's a time limit, and I think I made the mistake of making the panel too big, because that really made me rush around to try and get it completely covered, saturated in epoxy, and then get the fiberglass under it saturated in epoxy. And I don't know, obviously it's down there and it's not moving. I tried to adjust it and it's sticking. So I guess I did it okay, but it certainly, had me panicking and running around. If you had 2 people, obviously it'd be so much easier. So, okay, so we have the first 2 pieces in, but you'll notice we have gaps. So it's been about 3 hours since I put it in, so it's nice and tacky. It hasn't cured, but it has set up. So what I'm going to do now is mix some resin, some epoxy with the 404 filler. The 404 filler is what you would use to fill these cracks. So I'm going to get moving on this. So one trick I stumbled upon was when trying to fill these voids in here. I was going to fill them with thickened epoxy, but as I got doing it, it took a lot of epoxy. And what I found out, of course, is epoxy is very expensive. So what I started doing was I would cut little pieces of 3/4 inch plywood, and if you guys can see it there, I've just epoxied in these little pieces, and they take up the void perfectly. And it's plywood, so it's all epoxied in. And then when I put the big panel in, it'll just epoxy to that. So that's what I'm doing for some of these voids, just because it makes more sense than filling it with epoxy, and it'll be just as strong. So that should save some money. Doesn't necessarily save time. Okay, so I'm just about ready to put the last panel in, and you can see the consistency of the epoxy. It's kind of like diner ketchup. I've got some 403 mixed into it, some filler, and I want it kind of oozing down there, so it's going to create a bed, and a sticky bed that panel can adhere to. So that's what I'm doing right now. It's not rocket science. You just put the filler in and mix it to, you know, as thick as you desire. But I thought this would work really good for what I'm trying to do here.
Started going in his younger years. Always wished it would be his life. Memories back to when he was a child, sleeping under star-filled skies.